don't look at me and say, like, I gave you a bad opportunity here. The opportunity is open for you. So it's up to you what you make of it.
So how does an undergrad end up working in Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so, well, by accident. That's why often when I speak to people and they're like, oh, I want to work in marketing. And I'm like, what type of marketing do you want to work in? Because it's so varied. I'll be honest, I didn't even know. I just thought I was going to design websites and make animations.
And in most days, things all okay when you wake up in the morning? No, okay.
Never. I'm now kind of 18 years in. But again, a lot of it comes out of the people you're around.
You like to draw, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so are you more focused on the creative side of it or the tech side?
And as soon as I walked in, like, the illustrations I had made were like draped from ceiling to floor.
Wow.
No, I'm going to hold out for that big one. It was more now, okay, here's 5 or 6 platforms that you manage. But the reality is, like, there's always been another thing to come and take someone's job. It's just how you adapt and change to the new challenge that's there.
Wow, so the Indy episode, that was pretty impressive, wasn't it?
Yeah, I loved it. There's a lot of reasons why, actually. So I like the fact how you spoke about networking, like, being really important, how it's really important to create relationships with people, as that's really good for you for the future. And also the fact that he spoke about going for every opportunity that you can, because I think nowadays not a lot of people do that. And also when he spoke about the fact that straight after uni, he went straight into Coca-Cola and he's been there for 18 years. So showing loyalty to Coca-Cola is nice as well.
Yeah. And he's done so many different jobs. I think when you work in a big company like Coca-Cola, there is so much opportunity, and actually to have been able to grow through the ranks the way he has, I mean, I think our listeners are in for an absolute treat, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy this one. Watch Indy and take lots of notes.
Hi, I'm Indy and I'm taking you behind the future.
Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Future, and wow, we've got a good one for you today. So we are joined by our regular on the show, Ruhaan. Ruhaan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Ruhaan and I'm a year 12 student at MGGS.
Amazing. What are you studying, Ruhaan?
Politics, media and sociology.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being back with us again today. And we have a wonderful guest with us, and you've got so many exciting stories. I can't wait to hear all about them. Indy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, perfect. I'm Indy Bhogal. I work for Coca-Cola Europacific Partners, and I'm the Associate Director of Digital.
Amazing.
So pleased to be here with you both.
Thank you. And it sounds like a very interesting job. So let's dive straight in. Ruhaan, over to you.
Straight away, walk us through a day of what your job looks like at Coca-Cola.
So I guess the typical day is, I mean, there's no real typical day, to be honest with you. A lot of the time it's because the role has so many varied parts to it. It means that I wake up in the morning and it will be looking at emails that have happened overnight to see if any of the tools, technologies and platforms have had an issue. So picking up with those teams across all the countries in Australia and New Zealand and just double checking, making sure that everything's working as it should have done. And then really when my day kind of kicks into the flow is it's really working on the project. So often I have maybe 3 or 4 projects happening at any one time. And so then it's checking in on those projects to make sure that everything's kind of moving as it should do. And then I guess from a you know, what could those projects be perspective, it's things like websites. So I look after and manage the 17 websites globally that we have. So sometimes the check-ins or things that I'll do is to just make sure that the content is going live on the site, everything's working again as it should do. And then similarly with things like digital screens. So I look after those across all of our countries as well. We have different people in each of the countries pushing content to the screens, but my focus is on like making sure it's all working and everything's kind of working as expected. So a lot of checking, making sure that everything's going okay and working as it should do. And then part of my day will involve kind of making sure that we're planning for the future. So always taking a moment to pick up with different people around the company to make sure that any plans or any ideas that we've got around what we want to achieve, either in the next 6 months or year, are being kind of worked through, because often from month to month, you've got a new request, you've got a new thing to deal with, a new challenge. So a lot of prep work goes into having a lot of those conversations and keeping up that network and that conversation with people.
Love that. And on most days, things all okay when you wake up in the morning? No. Okay.
Never.
So out of 5, how many days is it? Oh.
No, to be honest with you, it often is okay. I mean, again, part of my job is to make sure that we have kind of support in place. So I'm not the IT guy, but I work really closely with the guys in IT to make sure we've got support for all of these tools and technologies that I kind of oversee. So I'm like the business owner for the platforms, but I'm not the techie guy that's going to fix it. And so often it's just checking in with people to make sure that, did anything happen last night? Is everything working okay? And most of the time it's okay. Most of the time it's all right. Or if there has been a problem, again, we have support organised overnight to make sure that we're covered as well.
Love that. So you're not having to wake up and suddenly go into fix mode.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it happens, but again, I guess that's where it comes to kind of having good people and teams that you can rely on in a way. That kind of makes it easier and less stressful in that respect.
Love that. What's the most important platform for Coca-Cola?
Specifically for the ones I look after, I mean, they all play their different role. They're all comms platforms. So whether that's the internal platform that we have that employees see, that's super important because it gets the messages out to employees, and it's also a platform where they can interact and engage with each other. So you can compare it to something like having Facebook in the workplace. So people can post their own content and stuff. So that's quite a nice space that we've got set up for them. So super important to get the messaging out to them. But then we've got things around our factories and offices, like digital screens. So big, massive screens in all our factories and offices. That means that people who don't have mobile phones can also kind of walk past the screen and see some of the communications that we're putting out there. And then the other one, I guess the website. The website's a big driver of traffic. People come to our website to find out more about us as a business. So whether that's you're interested in finding a job or you're interested in investing in the company, it's essentially the shop front a lot of the time. And so we make kind of big investments to make sure that firstly it's up and running and that it's working okay, and then secondly that the right people are getting to the site and getting the information they need. So yeah, they're all equally important. They're all important just in their own way.
Love that.
What would you say is like one of the biggest challenges working with such a big brand?
I guess it's the volume of people that have eyes on you. And so often, whether it's any of these platforms that I've just spoken about, often people are looking at you like, what are Coca-Cola doing there? What are they saying there? And so often you have to, I guess the biggest challenge is making sure that your position and your messaging is very clear and open to a lot of people's different perceptions. And so then using our platforms and all of that sort of stuff and all of our social media channels as well, it's always important to make sure that we're telling our story in the way that we can. Because otherwise, if you don't, then someone else will.
Yeah.
And obviously now in the age of like AI being everywhere and stuff like that, it's even more of a challenge. And so making sure that what we think or our positions on particular topics is out there and clear for people to see is super important, and even more so now.
Yeah, I imagine being in such a large company. In a small company, like my team is 60 of us. So everyone roughly knows everyone. Obviously, you've got your really close teammates. But how many employees are there worldwide?
So you can check the website, but around 40,000.
Wow. I was going to say it was in the high thousands. So yeah. So you're never going to know everyone. You're also never going to get to chat to everyone. But I guess you're constantly having to engage in relationships with people that you don't know particularly well and having to manage that process. Whereas in a small team, you kind of know everyone and you can get to work out their quirks and how to work together.
Especially when it's like abroad as well. Like, what's that like collaborating with like other members from other countries as well?
Do you know what? It can be difficult, but you really do have to make the time. And so I guess where I work in a global central role, our job is basically to make sure we are picking up with all of those countries and that we're learning from whatever they're doing at a local country level so that we can bring it into the center and then also share it amongst all the other countries to say, look at the great work that they're doing in this country. Maybe this is something you can also do. So whether that's kind of creating different types of content on the website or kind of they've found a different way to deliver an entire communications campaign, it's our role to kind of take those ideas, bring them to the center, and then share them out amongst all the countries. And so the relationships you have to build are super important because you're not always going to get the chance to like travel to every single country. And so I think COVID times kind of helped in getting people a little bit like used to the fact that I'm going to have a Teams call with you. Half an hour of it will be talking about other stuff, and then we're going to talk about work for the next 30 minutes. But building those relationships and stuff is so important because, I mean, for me personally, it's meant that when I've needed support on a project, because I've put the effort in to get to know people, it means that when I call you up and say, oh, I could really do with some help on this project, or I need your support on this, then often the answer is, yeah, sure, just let me know. And without taking the time and the effort to put in to understand exactly what they're doing locally and how they're doing, you can't just make that phone call. You can't just get in there like that. And that's true of any kind of workplace, to be honest with you. The relationship building side is the number one key. And it's just taking time. I think some people take that for granted, and often you can sometimes think in your head, oh, because I'm at this level, I can ask that person and it's just going to happen. But you don't necessarily want it to happen that way. You want it to happen out of the fact that they genuinely want to support and help you because they trust and know you as an individual. And that's a much stronger relationship to build on.
Yeah, but is it likewise for them? So do they have to check on you as well and see what you're doing, right?
Yeah, so they do often check in with me. So for example, if they want to do a particular digital project and it requires a new bit of tech or something like that, their first port of call is to say, great, let's get the idea down and let's check in with Indy to see if this is something either already exists somewhere in the company or if it's something brand new, and what's the process to getting that bit of tech in. And so again, I rely on the fact that when they come to me, I should have a good bit of knowledge about exactly what we have across the entire company from a comms tools perspective. And so then instantly I'll be able to respond to them and say, yep, I know we've got that live in this country. Let me make a connection between us, and then we can make sure that that particular thing can happen. Or if it's the case that that bit of tech that they want doesn't exist in the organization, then it's me picking up with the IT guys to say, hey, we've had this idea come through. Can you support me to make this a reality in that country? So I end up being a bit of a middleman in all of this, but it's absolutely fine because I've got a tech background, but that kind of helps in being in this communication space, because a lot of the time, people in the comm space won't necessarily have a massive kind of technology background or IT background. So it's nice being that bridge between the comms people who have ideas that they want to kind of create into products, and then the IT guys who are just like, just tell me what the thing is that you need. And so I kind of bridge that gap.
Yeah, that's another thing as well, because you like to draw, right?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so are you more focused on the creative side of it or the tech side?
Oh, do you know what? In the early days, so when I first started out, it was all about graphic design. So designing, creative, everything you can imagine in the Adobe suite, whether it's creating videos, animations, 3D products, I was all over that. And I thought that's going to be my end game. That's all I'm going to do. But as I progressed through my career, I realized kind of I had a big interest in kind of new technology and bringing new tech to the communication space, and then more so enabling other people to kind of upskill, learn how that new tech can work for them. And that ended up kind of, in a weird way, it just ended up building my career path through that way rather than doing the graphic design side of things, which, I mean, in my personal time, I still do drawing, I still do all of that sort of stuff. But less so from the perspective that, that's a big focus of mine anymore. but I just keep it going anyway, just because I can. And it's like an interest that I've still got.
Love that. So when someone's got an idea, whether that's someone in one of the different countries or whether, I guess you must sometimes have ideas, like what's the process of a business case and getting something signed off? Like, are you part of that sign off process, or are you having to write the business case to get it signed off, or how does that work?
Yeah, so normally someone comes over to us with their idea, and we'll always support. To be honest with you, we'll always support, because no idea is a bad idea. And so what we do is we spend a bit of time with that person or that team to kind of unpick exactly how we could get to a point where they've got something that, you know, that they wanted. And so whether that's, again, like exploring existing solutions that we already have, or whether that's starting from scratch and going straight to IT and saying, I don't know what it is that we need, but this is the problem statement, if you will.
Yep.
Help us get to a point where, you know, this person feels heard and we've given them something that they can use. So yeah, like I said, being that bridge between.
Yeah.
So I'll get what the communications person has said to me, and then I'll take that to IT and say, look, this is actually what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they'll go, okay, cool. I understand that. We can make this happen through this, and this, and it's going to take either 6 months or a year to get done, but we'll be able to do something with it. So that's why I work quite closely with like the social media manager. Anytime she needs something, it's like, Indy, can we get this thing? I'm like, hold on, let me just check, and let me check on when we can get the funds for the project, when we can get the resource allocated to the project. So it ends up being a lot about pulling lots of people together for someone else's like outcome, you know, someone else's project. But it's a helpful way in which I can rely on the network that I've got to make something happen for the wider communications team.
I love that. What's the most exciting project you've seen happen in your, and we'll go back to the start of Coca at some point because I want to know how this all happened. But yeah, what's the most exciting thing that you've worked on?
I mean, there's been a lot of, so we will go into this a bit, but I've been there for now, I think this is my 18th year.
Wow.
So it's a long old time. And so lots of things have happened along the way. I think some of the website projects, again, have been amazing for me, you know, considering when I was a kid, making websites at home, to then, you know, working with agencies to put out, like last year we made 17 new websites for Coca-Cola globally and our corporate websites and put that out. That was pretty cool. That's a pretty nice big project. But I still remember when I first started off at Coca-Cola as an undergrad, and I was kind of massive into like graphic design and all that sort of stuff. So any which way I was trying to find an angle to create something. And I still remember, so every year we have a brand conference where essentially everyone presents their brand plans for the year and things like that. And I remember speaking to someone who was organizing the event and saying, oh, I can create illustrations. I can do these sorts of things. And they were like, oh, great, we need someone to create some illustrations for us. And so I did the illustrations and stuff. And then I went to the brand conference, and I think there was around 2,000 people there. It was a huge event. And as soon as I walked in, like the illustrations I had made were like draped from ceiling to floor.
Wow.
And you can imagine as an undergrad walking in and thinking, oh God, I just made that on my laptop at home, just not thinking too much of it. So I still look back at that point and think, oh, that was pretty cool. Probably gave me the appetite to be like, oh yeah, I want to make a career kind of here.
Yeah, I love that. So how does an undergrad end up working in Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so, well, by accident often. No, so I guess when I was in university, so I went to Brunel University, and I was on a 3-year course there, and I thought, that's it. I'm just going to do multimedia design technology, do my 3 years here, and then I'll go get a job. And I think it was the second year where they kind of asked us all, do you want to do a work placement year? Do you want to turn this into a sandwich course? And a few of us were like, oh, don't know. We didn't really know too much about it, didn't really think too much about it. But then it's that typical thing of like when one of your friends does it, you're like, oh, maybe I need to think about it. Oh, it would be nice if we all graduate at the same time. And so then a few of us ended up saying, yeah, we'll do that. And again, with the mindset that we all want to be designers, we all want to do that, and that's our main gig. the university gave us like a list of potential places we could go and interview for jobs at, and one of those was Coca-Cola. And initially, I'll be honest, I wasn't that excited by the opportunity because it was just updating an internal website. It was for someone who's done stuff like this for years. Personally, I was like, oh, that's not as exciting. And there was no graphic design mentioned in it. There was nothing about creativity mentioned in it. It was just someone's going to email you. They're going to say, change the word on this website. And then you did that and then you were done. And so I remember no one had applied for the job. And then the uni started saying to us, oh, guys, like someone should apply for this job. There's so many of you students. So anyway, I think about 12 of us ended up going for the interview, going for the job. And then out of that 12, then I ended up securing the job. I also did get another job at a design agency at the same time. And so I literally had the weekend to think about what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to go to Coca-Cola for this undergrad opportunity or whether I wanted to go pure play design at a design agency. And over that weekend I was like, okay, what's good for the long term here? Like, I'll always be designing. I'm sure I'll always be designing at that point, but Coke on my CV would look pretty good for a first job. And so then I ended up going for the opportunity at Coca-Cola, and then I did that full year there, but I spent a lot of that year working for anybody that I could. So I remember starting off there 3 months in or 2 months in, not really knowing too much about exactly what I was doing. Like, it was update a website, but then what? You just find yourself having a lot of free time. But I was still kind of enthusiastic and wanted to do tasks, do jobs for whoever, as long as I can maybe pull in a design angle to it at that point. And so I remember emailing a lot of people in different departments. I didn't even know them, but I kind of just got to know them, like walking around the corridors, see what other departments there are, and then messaging a lot of these people saying, oh, by the way, I can make websites, I can design animations, I can do video production. If you need anything, obviously I'm here, so just let me know. And I checked it through with my boss at that time, and they were like, yeah, that's fine. Like, this is your experience. And I think that was one of the biggest advice that my first boss at Coca-Cola gave me was, if you have a bad experience over this year, like, don't look at me and say, like, I gave you a bad opportunity here. The opportunity is open for you. So it's up to you what you make of it. If you need support, if you need anything, all you have to do is ask. Like, we'll support you absolutely with it. But if you don't ask and you don't say anything and you just kind of ride this out and hope that just on the CV it looks good, then you're not going to get the quality that you otherwise could have done.
What good advice. That boss was a very smart person.
Yeah, no, definitely. I still talk to him now.
Is he still at Coca-Cola?
No, he's not. But someone that, during those early years, I definitely kind of look back fondly on and kind of think that was good advice back then.
Yeah.
You know, it's your experience. And
I love that, because you were basically going around Coca-Cola selling yourself, going, I've got a bit of free time, let me help you out, and it's free. I'm here.
Yeah.
Because some people might have just gone, oh, I'll just sit back, I'll bring a book in with me, or I'll sit and play on my phone or whatever and wait for some work. But actually you went, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
Let's go make the most of this opportunity.
Yeah, no, definitely. Don't get me wrong, I did do a lot of that as well in the early days when I didn't know. But yeah, it was, you know, you quickly learn that it's about the network, the relationships, and the people. You start tapping into those things, and then you're like, okay, there's a place for me here. Because I guess ultimately everyone wants to feel like, you know, oh, that's like home, or that I feel happy in this place. And a lot of that comes out of those relationships you build with people.
Just a quick note from me. We'd love you to hit the subscribe button. This helps us more than you might realise when it comes to growing this podcast, ensuring we can bring you the best guests possible. Thank you. Back to the episode. Do you think, obviously, some people today going in to do a work placement, etc., there'll be potentially a lot of remote working happening, or even people taking those opportunities remote. Like, how important was being able to walk down those corridors, stop and chat to someone over a cup of tea, for building those relationships to make those things happen?
Oh, it was so important.
Yeah.
Like, can't imagine how difficult it must be in these times to kind of get a job and sit at home and kind of that's it, like, because it's always such a barrier, I think, to seeing truly someone's personality when you have to do it all through like Zoom or whatever it might be. So I think with me being in the office and then me kind of naturally being a bit more of a chatty person, it meant that I was okay with kind of bumping into people, having a conversation about careers or what I can do and stuff like that, because I didn't mind. And when you're face to face with someone, you start to see things like how they're responding to you to judge whether or not, okay, is this conversation going well? Whereas sitting in front of a laptop screen, looking at someone who's probably sitting in their bedroom as well, it's really hard to read, is this going well? Whereas if you're in front of someone, I find people are a lot more expressive.
Yeah.
And then you're able to judge, okay, this is going well, we can keep on going. Yeah. I've got a meeting coming up, but it's all good because this conversation is like going really well. And so yeah, I'd say that face-to-face, getting in the office and doing that bit is so valuable, especially in those early days for sure. Yeah. Like when you're a bit more established and stuff, yeah, you can, by that time you've got your network and you've got your people, and you're having a phone call with someone or being on Zoom with someone is absolutely fine. But in those early days, I think being in front of people, having those face-to-face meetings is so important.
But you also still, even once you've got the network, you still need to show up so the young people can bump into you and talk to you. And I think that's the thing I always say to our team, like we still need people coming into the office because we want the young people there to learn. But if you're not there to learn from, and I imagine, like, I can almost picture it, that especially in the size of company that Coca-Cola would have been, that there was almost people going, have you met that intern or the year placement student that's offering his time up and he just did this for me, and almost like a secret of, actually maybe I don't want to tell anyone because he's helping me out. But what a buzz to create around the fact that you were there and making all these relationships and helping these people.
Yeah, definitely. I think again, because when I first started, I was in a GB role. So it was only Great Britain. That was only my remit, was to kind of look after one GB website. But because I was just, the corporate team didn't sit too far away. So the corporate global team didn't sit too far away. It'd make time to go and see them and speak to them. And ultimately it meant that after a while, they were like, okay, you seem to talk to a lot of people, a lot of the other local countries. It probably makes sense that you come and do that role, but you do it from our team. And so again, that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't so, like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't in their face, but I was just around. And just being around is sometimes enough. Obviously, you got to do the work and put the effort in, but just being around is sometimes super important.
Love that. So you do the year, you've made yourself somewhat famous, but then you still got to go back to uni to finish your last year of your degree. What was your degree in as well?
It was multimedia, design technology.
We did know that. So you go back and you finish. And is that, because I've spoken to a few people that have done these kind of, where they go and do the year placement. Sometimes you're a bit like, I don't know if I want to go back and study now. I quite enjoyed working. So how was that experience?
So I always knew I wanted to finish my degree. Right? It's one of those things. I've started it.
Yeah,
I'm going to finish it. Going to get it done. But again, before I left, I was very conscious that I needed to somehow keep this connection to this company. I need to stay in contact with some of the people from this company. And so when I went back to university, I made my dissertation based on a project at Coca-Cola. That gave me a little bit of an inroad to have to go back to the office, go to speak to people again. So at that year, it meant that a couple of times here and there, I had to go back into the office to just gather some information. And so that was me kind of keeping a bit of a connection to the company. And so then by the time when I graduated, my first instinct, so I graduated in 2009. And for anyone who doesn't know, there was like a big old recession back then. And so there weren't any jobs kind of easily floating around. It meant that you as a grad were now up against people who had 20, 30 year long careers that had now lost their jobs. And so I think instantly I was thinking, God, this is a really difficult time. I don't even know what it's like to be in the job market, but I imagine all these people who have just been hit by this recession are feeling it. and I lived at home with my parents, and so I was okay financially from that perspective. I just needed to be at home and eating the food that's made and everything like that. So financially, I wasn't driven by like I need lots of money at this point. I just needed some, but I didn't need like to hold out for the big lot. And so then I got in touch with my old boss that I previously reported into, and I just asked for the student job again. And obviously the first response was, yeah, but you've graduated now. And I was like, that's fine. I said, it's just a good way to get back in. And because again, I'd worked quite hard, I'd got to know quite a lot of people. She was like, yeah, you can come back like on a temporary basis, and then we can figure it out from there. And so really then, I mean, she asked like, when do you want to start? And I was like, yeah, September is fine. So I had a little bit of time between exams and results and all that sort of stuff. And then I kind of started back there as an undergrad again, oddly enough, but I was a graduate. And then for 3 months, I kind of did that role, but then they made it a permanent role. And so they made it what was it? I forget what the name of it. I think it was a designer in the comms team. And I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I needed to kind of get the role, but then also be in a team that I liked, good people around me. I was like, I'll figure it out from there. And so that's how I ended up being back in the company after kind of completing my degree.
I love that, because some people would have gone, no, I've got to get the decent job. I'm a grad now. I need the good title. But actually to go, do you know what? No, I just will take the same thing and I will build from here. And well, I mean, 18 years later and they've never got rid of you yet. So something's gone well.
It's interesting actually, because when you were in university, was that when you realized that you were interested in digital marketing?
I'll be honest, I didn't even know. I just thought I was going to design websites and make animations. I thought that's all I'd end up doing. I remember being one of like my only, all the guys in school and stuff all had different ideas about what they wanted to do, but I was the only one back then that was like, yeah, I'm going to make websites and design animations. I thought that's it. And so going to university, it wasn't necessarily that I was going to university to learn more about that, because sometimes university, especially when it comes to digital and tech and stuff, is often a little bit behind. And so you end up learning a little bit more about theory and putting things into good structures and things like that. Whereas I was already designing stuff, creating animations, doing all that sort of stuff. And so I can't say at uni I was like, that's where I got my additional direction from. But the work placement year was definitely that. And so had I not have gone to university, I wouldn't have got that opportunity to do the work placement at Coke, because the university had that relationship with Coca-Cola already. And then I wouldn't have ended up where I am now. So it worked in my favor, but I didn't think that at that point that I was learning anything new up until that opportunity to do a work placement came around. And then that was like, okay, great. Now I've got a career. Again, I didn't even know that comms teams I didn't even know about comms teams. I didn't know there's what was a communications team. Just in university, you're sitting there and you're thinking, I'm going to be a designer, I'm going to do this sort of stuff. You just end up focusing on that. You don't necessarily care or think about the structure of a business and the different teams. I do remember often people saying to me, oh, are you in the marketing team? And I was like, it's not really the marketing team, because marketing is a different team. I work in the communications teams where it's more about managing the reputation of the business and those sorts of things. Whereas marketing is like the brands, the products, and selling to consumers or customers. And that's a whole different space. But then even the marketing team won't necessarily have designers or anything like that in-house.
No, they might be using agencies.
Well, often you're using agencies because the scale of the work is so massive.
Yeah.
And so that's why often when I speak to people and they're like, oh, I want to work in marketing. And I'm like, what type of marketing do you want to work in? Because it's so varied.
Well, and also for something like Coca-Cola, where you've got comms teams, marketing teams, and all different types of roles, strip that back to a small business and someone does all of that themselves potentially, or just 2 or 3 people. So it's there's so many different scales. And I think, when people say they want to work in marketing, you're right. It's like where, and they probably also don't even know, because you've got in-house and agency side, and there's just so much potential and opportunity, isn't there?
I think that's where I kind of did start to learn a lot more about kind of agencies. And if you wanted to go down the being a designer route, then you need to focus on that agency part, because you'll be designing all the time then. Because if it's a design agency, they're working for multiple companies, creating multiple campaigns, and kind of there'll be people in the building that are designing there and then. Whereas when you join a company like ours, it's a corporate organization, we rely on that agency support to be able to deliver a lot of that sort of stuff for us. And so, I mean, it didn't change the fact that once I started doing some of that creative stuff in the first few years, that I was still kind of interested, because I was still creating stuff. I was still making videos, again, because I was telling people that I could do things. I was taking a bit of the work away from some of the agencies because I was making it in-house. And so I think that was useful for the comms team at that point, because they were like, oh, great, we've got like this new student who's basically able to make videos and animations and stuff, whereas we were paying an agency to do that. So I kind of found an opportunity there to do that. It wasn't going to be forever, to be honest with you, because it's not sustainable, because there's sometimes too much to create, too much to do. But for me, I found it like a good opportunity to get in, do my design thing, but also start to learn about what a big corporate company does, and find my way through there.
Was that your first time having to work within the constraints of brand guidelines? Had you come across that before? Because I suppose for designers, that's sometimes when they first, I have to work in this framework or in this type of way, which is very different to when you're at uni and you can just do whatever you want and you can just design.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely back then when I started, kind of brand guidelines existed, but they weren't as strict as they are now. Like we're much more kind of on it, because back then it was like, whatever is the most creative way you can deliver this thing and it looks cool, just go with that. So we did have a lot of freedom back then, but you're right. When I sometimes would create something and someone say, it doesn't really look like us. I go, yeah, but that's the point. I want it to be like creative. This is something I've thought up. Like, surely, like, believe in the design that I've made. And then you got a bit more pushback to say, no, you need to use these colors. You need to do this. Sometimes that was a little bit like, oh, like, is this what I want to be doing? Like, within these guardrails. But you get it, when over a period of time, companies have a particular look, a particular style and design. And if you start making a whole series of random stuff that looks disconnected, then people don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah.
So, like, inherently, when you see a can of Coke, you know that that's a can of Coke. Or if you see a glass bottle of Coca-Cola and if it's in the dark or something like that, you know the shape of it, you know it's a Coke. Yeah. So those sorts of things from a design perspective, I completely get now. Now I'm a lot more like, okay, I understand why as a company you have guidelines and those things in place.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely it was always challenging at the start.
Yeah, it is tricky, isn't it? Yeah, it's hard to get the creativity when you've got the framework.
Yeah. What would you say is like one of the biggest myths about working in digital marketing for like such a big brand?
I guess one of the myths, well, I guess it goes back to a lot of people thinking that we have a whole bunch of designers sitting together in the marketing team, when actually you've got a lot of people looking and managing different brands and different brand campaigns, but actually all the designers are actually sitting at another agency. And so I think, again, from thinking back when I was kind of 16, 17, I would have easily thought that a company like Coca-Cola just has like a marketing team full of designers and creatives all sitting in one room or working together. But again, through what I've just said, like, the reality is often you're relying on kind of agencies who do that day in, day out, and that's their business. And so I'd say that's the biggest myth, is thinking that you're going to rock up to a corporate organization, jump into the marketing team, and you're literally making things in like Photoshop and stuff like that. That's going to go on a kind of global scale. It's a lot of working with agencies. It's a lot of kind of campaign design. It's different to kind of what you would initially think. And so, yeah, I'd say that's the biggest kind of myth behind it.
So what happens next? So you've got the job, you're getting to do some design work for Coke. How do you end up where you are today?
Again, a lot through talking to people and kind of making sure it's known what it is that you want to do and achieve. And so I spent a lot of time with a lot of the leaders in the company trying to figure that out. I didn't know what the kind of next step was. I didn't know what the next opportunity was. But then trying to figure that out with some of the leaders that we had was really helpful. So again, it's about kind of having some of those conversations where you're looking at your career and kind of different career paths that other people have taken and all of that sort of stuff. And so I remember kind of year on year, it was like, okay, so what's next now? You know, or from a project perspective, it was what's going to give me some more experience in a different space. And so it wasn't all about just sitting there and kind of looking after that website or designing that one piece of thing. It was what's the next project maybe that's going to put me into the next discussion.
Yeah.
So where are people going to kind of say, oh yeah, I've seen Indy do that thing now. That was great, and kind of out of his comfort zone, or kind of a new opportunity that he took on. And so I found doing a lot of those sorts of things and keeping up that discussion with the leadership team meant that I then had some gradual progression. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to get my dates all mixed up now. I think I was in the role for around 4 years in the GB team, or no, 3 years in the GB team. And then I kind of got my next promotion within that team, to again look after more things. Gradually, as you'll notice, you just end up starting to look after more and more things as you progress. And then from that team, I moved into the global central team. And again, that move was highlighted to me as like, you're working a lot with a lot of these local teams. You're sharing kind of best practice. You're always kind of in touch with them. We think it will be a good opportunity to have those discussions, but you have them then from a central role. And so then I moved into the central team, and that was great, because then for me it kind of unlocked again the opportunity to actually go out and go and meet a lot of the people in these other countries, go and see what they're doing kind of day to day, see how some of the stuff that we're sending over on email are actually landing with them. Because often you're like, okay, great, I've rolled out all this bit of tech to everyone. Is anybody using it?
Yeah.
And so now I was in a position to actually go out there, sit down with a lot of the teams and kind of see it in action. And then again, share back with me kind of live feedback around it didn't really work, or this is what could have been done better. And so then I guess that was the next level of kind of progress that I made, was to establish myself as like the go-to digital person within the function, which ultimately, I think when I first started, I was thinking, oh, that would be great if everyone knows that, like, they can come to me. I mean, it's a gift and a curse in that, because I've been there for 18 years. Projects that I started and finished 18 years ago, people will still knock on my door and just kind of say, by the way, Indy, I know you don't do this anymore, but like, can you give us a hand with this? And so, yeah, there comes a point where I know my boss at the moment, he jokes with me. He's like, Indy, remember when you used to actually like get back to people about those things? And I was like, I'm trying to move on.
Yeah.
But people, you know, they remember you. Again, it's all about those relationships you build up with people. And you feel like, yeah, I can reach out to Indy. Like, I know Indy, he worked on this. I can get in touch with him. And so, yeah, having been there for so long has meant that, although now I'm looking much more at like strategy, our long-term plan, what do we want to achieve using digital platforms, tools and technologies across the entire function, someone will still reach out to me and say, oh, this screen at the factory isn't working. Like, can we get that sorted? So, yeah, I guess that next progression that I made into the central team was probably the biggest one, into kind of being a lot more responsible for these platforms. So less so being their day-to-day, the publishing content and stuff. It was more now, okay, here's 5 or 6 platforms that you manage. And you're making sure that this thing is running. You have teams supporting them. You have local content authors kind of publishing content to them. And so then it becomes more of, you're more responsible for these things, as opposed to being like, you're the executor of kind of publishing content. And so then, yeah, that was the next biggest step, which I'm in at the moment.
Love it. It's amazing.
I think it's just like so fascinating, because I've never met anyone that works at Coca-Cola. So I wanted to ask you, like, what's the coolest thing about working in Coca-Cola?
The coolest thing? And do you know what? For me, it would be that my kids can tell people that their dad works for Coca-Cola. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's weird because when you actually the dad and mum work for Coca-Cola, I should say.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so both me and my wife work for Coca-Cola.
Did you meet at Coca-Cola?
No, so we met in school.
Okay.
So we met when we were like 17.
And who was there first at Coca-Cola?
So I was there first on work
I feel like this is like there might be an argument if your wife was here.
She'll watch this back and say, "Look, I like how you told that story." So I was because I was there on work placement first. She was finishing up her degree while I was on work placement, and so then by the time I went back to university, she then managed to get a job at Coca-Cola, and then I ended up coming back the following year. So we kind of just
so you were still first though. I'll let you
I was still first. I was still first. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty nice to work for a big company like this and a brand that's again kind of cool. It's well known. Like everyone in the world kind of knows of the brand, and so I think for my kids, they're always very excited about the fact that we work for this big company, and also it's nice for them. They get to like pop into the office and they get to see like all the brands and all the activations and stuff that we do. What else is really cool? I mean, we Christmas and Coca-Cola is kind of synonymous with each other. So that's a really cool thing.
Is your house full of merch? Have you got
Coca-Cola
everything?
Yeah. No, so our attics are full of like Coca-Cola merchandise where it's just like bottles that we've collected over the years of like the James Bond bottles to the World Cups or anything like that. And so yeah, we do have like lots and lots of merchandise. And actually when the brand conferences happen, they send out kind of new products to you. And so they'll send out new products in the post, and because obviously we both work for Coca-Cola, we get 2 boxes of like new unreleased products. And so then often we'll kind of message my nephew and niece and be like, do you guys drink these products? And they're like, yeah, no, send those over to us. And so they're always quite excited by that. But yeah, I think working for such a big brand, it's the most exciting thing is that there's always something new, a new campaign or something going live that then when people know that, oh, Indy works for Coke, they're always asking you about it and always quite excited about it. So I'd say that's probably the coolest thing.
It's a good question. I like that. Yeah. I like that. What if your kids one day want to work at Coca-Cola? Would you encourage them?
Yeah.
It's a whole family affair.
Family affair, yeah. Often actually you'll find in our manufacturing sites that there's quite a lot of parents that work there or have worked there for like 30, 40 years, and then their kids have come through and also start working there. Again, because it's sometimes you don't even know that the office is there or the factories are there nearby and stuff like that. But the people who live there end up knowing, and then it becomes a big kind of employer for those areas. Yeah. And so, yeah, for me, like I live down the road from the office, like 5 minutes away from the office. But as a kid, I had no idea Coca-Cola was based where they are.
No, love that.
So, yeah.
Are there many people in your office that have been there as long as you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. There's quite a lot. And there's a few people that I always say once you get past the 5-year mark, you end up being a lifer. I didn't ever think but I didn't know. I didn't know what it was like. I remember starting off as a student and kind of speaking to people who were like, oh yeah, I've been here for 10 years. And I was like, 10 years, that's a long time. Yeah. And those guys are still there. And I'm now kind of 18 years in. But again, a lot of it comes out of the people you're around. Yeah. If it's a nice environment to work in, then you end up kind of staying around, and obviously with the opportunities as well.
Yeah, I mean, you've done a lot of different jobs, I'm sure. And for what you do today, what do you think are the most important skills that someone that is Ruhaan's age could recognise and go, oh, okay, so those kind of skills would allow me to do the kind of job Indy does?
Yeah, sure. I think skills-wise, again, it goes back to being able to talk to people.
So networking them.
Yeah, just I mean, it's networking, and then there's just being able to have good conversations with people, building that as your skill, even if it is out of your comfort zone, it really opens up doors and opens up conversations and opportunities. The more of those conversations you can have, really you start to kind of feel a bit more comfortable, a bit more relaxed, and then you start to find your feet. I think too often we're focused on like what the end goal is, but in the first instance, it's about, can you hold a conversation with someone? Can you just, get that person's perspective and learn from people? And it's not about kind of having a conversation to just be heard. It's about listening.
Yeah.
And listening to someone else's experiences and thoughts and everything like that. And then knowing that, okay, I'm going to wait, let this person have their moment, then I'm going to ask my question around that. And I'm not just here just because it's benefiting me, but because this is genuine. Like, being genuine and having a genuine conversation with people to build a relationship is so important. And I think that's something that everyone can kind of get to and kind of understand. There's other things you can do to kind of help you in your career and stuff. And one of the things is around kind of, whether you're a designer, whether you're a creative or something like that, you need to have something to show. And one of the things I always used to think about was, so when I used to do web design as a kid, and I say as a kid, as like a 14, 15-year-old, I used to design websites for individuals or for businesses. I used to kind of just make them. But one of the things they would ask me for is like, oh, show us what you've done. And if you haven't got anything done, then that's a bit of a barrier to entry there.
Yeah, hard to trust you when you can't see anything.
Yeah, and so I think it's taking pride in some of the stuff you have done. So whether you're just kind of drawing and you've got a whole bunch of drawings that you've done and you think they look great, but you've not shown them to anyone, or you haven't created a portfolio or anything like that. So the first bit is just get comfortable with showing people that stuff and having that available somewhere. Hence why I still do my designing stuff. I still publish things on like Instagram, but I'm not in it for the fact that I want to get new business or anything like that. That's just personally for me. But if I was looking for a job as a creative or a designer, like, I need to have that stuff showcased somewhere. I need to be able to kind of stand by my stuff and kind of say, yeah, this is what I do and this is my style, and like, that's it. Whereas often people kind of go, oh, I haven't worked in a company, I haven't got experience in this, that, or the other. But even for us, like, I'll look through people's kind of social platforms and stuff like that when they come in for interviews. Often people put that on their CVs nowadays.
Yeah.
And so if you're a creative and you're going for a creative job, then just make sure you've set up your shop front in a way.
Yeah. Aspiration Digital is the one-day careers conference to help young people get started in the digital industry. We are just planning our next events, and we are planning to move around the UK. So this is your opportunity. If you follow the link in the show notes, you can suggest that we come to your local area and get your school listed on the wait list. Follow the link now and pop your details in. We hope to see you at a future event. Something that's come up on quite a few of our podcasts is talking about AI. We weren't going to let you get out the door without talking about that. How is AI being embraced at Coca-Cola? Is it changing your job at all? And what do you see the opportunities?
Yeah, so AI is massive. I mean, everyone's talking about it. There's no getting away from it. For the last 2 years, it's definitely become something that doesn't matter what field of work you're in, someone's trying to figure out a way that they can use it. I guess for us in the comm space, I guess there's 3 different types of ways we're trying to look at it. One is from a research perspective. So like sometimes when you need to find out information in previous years, you would Google that. Now definitely everyone's going to the ChatGPT or Copilot to find the answer. So from a research perspective, it's super helpful because it can help do some of that grunt work that otherwise we'd be clicking on loads of links through Google to look for. Data analysis. So a bit of an odd one, but if you looking through data, let's say if you're a comms manager, looking through data is sometimes hard because you're a comms manager, you're used to creating content. You don't necessarily understand absolutely everything about why people read that article or how far they made it down the page and what that means, or that sort of stuff. So we have a lot of data available to us, but often it's really hard to turn into insights. And so what we found is that actually grabbing some of that data and asking AI to do a bit of an analysis on that data has been super helpful, because then you've quickly got some insights and you're like, okay, right, I get it. I get why that might have happened. You're still not like a data scientist, but you feel a little bit more confident in talking to someone and saying this outcome happened as a result of this thing being done on the page. And then the final one is probably around kind of content creation, but I say first drafts. And and what I mean there is, AI is tricky in the fact that like you can create content in there. There's no kind of hiding from that. People will write their LinkedIn posts and their Facebook posts and whatever kind of using AI, and it's very obvious when someone's done that. And so what we always say to people is that although it's possible to do that, do remember that AI can't create you. So your personality, your style, your flair, all of that stuff that makes you, AI can't do. It might create a nicely worded piece of content, but that part of you will be missing in it. And so if you try to then publish that content onto social platforms and things like that, just know that all the people that follow you because of who you are, not what AI content you can generate. And so we say to people that for structure, for guidance, all of that sort of stuff, it can be really helpful. But for the final output, definitely not.
Yeah.
And so I guess that's the 3 different ways and approaches that we're taking to AI.
Love it. Do you think, is everyone embracing it in the teams that you work in?
Yeah. So I'm part of a AI Champions Network.
Nice.
Yeah. And so what that means is, over years of rolling out digital projects across the company, I've realized that if you don't do it locally and you don't work with local people, then you don't really get the adoption around people using the thing, because again, you can be locked in this bubble at the top kind of thinking, oh yeah, we've delivered that tool. Great. Hope everyone's using it, but I've got a tick on the fact that we've rolled it out.
Yeah, on to the next.
Yeah, a little bit. And so part of the AI Champions Network is all about making sure that at a local level, I've got an individual or a person that is really focusing on running small workshops for their team, sharing knowledge, sharing prompt ideas and all that sort of stuff. And that's across all the countries that we're in. And they then bring their knowledge and their insights back to the center to us to say, this is how we found that people are using it and how people have found it interesting. And that's a much more successful model for us to use to roll tech out. And so we have seen kind of good usage levels in kind of Copilot. And so, we're just gathering all of that feedback at the moment to see, like, is there something else we need to invest in? Or are they content with kind of what they've got and the access that they've got? And so it's definitely increased, but it's one of those ones where I still remember the days when we didn't have Facebook at work. Yeah. And that was blocked because they thought everyone was going to stop working. Yeah. Similar sort of challenges.
It's interesting as well because you spoke about research, content creation and data analysis, but then I think it's also dangerous for from a graphic designer's point of view, because you can easily just go into ChatGPT and say, generate me an image of this, because funnily enough, about 3 or 4 months ago for my media project, I had to make a poster, 1950s Coca-Cola poster versus 2020s Coca-Cola poster. And I actually went into ChatGPT and I said, give me some inspiration, make me some images as well. So I think, it's also dangerous from that point of view.
It is. And, again, it goes back to the topic that we talked around brand guidelines and those sorts of things. And it's challenging from the creative aspect because, a designer sitting there will go, damn, is this like my job gone?
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, there's always been another thing to come and take someone's job. It's just how you adapt and change to the new challenge that's there, or how you integrate that into your workflow. So a lot of what we're doing right now is like, what is my workflow? How do I normally do this task, and where can AI support and help? So for you in that example, it gave you the creative, or it gave you an idea of what you could create. Again, that might have sparked a different idea in your head, having seen that visual, and then you've gone off and actually done the thing yourself. So I do find a lot of creatives are starting to use it in that way for, again, like I said, on first drafts or to get inspiration. But you can't hand that in as your homework in a weird way, because if you can't stand by it, you can't recreate it. If you can't deliver that when you get into a job, then it becomes like, okay, have I actually learned how to do this? And so often, creative people are finding ways to integrate it into their workflow, but not handing it in as their final assignment.
Love that. We've also seen, especially from a brand guideline point of view, now I can't imagine how big the Coca-Cola brand guidelines are. We've worked with some big brands and you sometimes get these 150-page documents and you're like, how could I know all of that? But actually, if you now train an agent on, right, digest this, know the Coca-Cola brand guidelines, and then as you're creating something, you can upload it to the agent and say, am I on point? What have I missed? What's not going to get signed off, etc. And it can come back with feedback. And suddenly, instead of needing to intimately know the 150 pages off the top of your head, you've got a way to actually actively check your work and know that you're on brand. So it's things like that that's just incredible.
Yeah, and that's a lot of our discussions are kind of down that line at the moment, because you can imagine we always create digital guidelines, we create social media guidelines and all this sort of stuff. And we hope people are listening and paying attention to those, but often, like you say, they're long old PDFs that contain a lot of information and it's hard to digest. And so right now we're actually in the process of kind of getting all that down in the hope to then get to a point where you can run a creative through an AI tool and then it picks out any points of like issues that kind of don't connect with the brand guidelines. And so again, it's about building it into workflows and changing the way we work, not necessarily stopping us from kind of doing our job.
Well, in some ways it's to enable people to do their jobs better. We're doing the same like with company handbooks, and again, you think companies have so many policies, things to support and protect their employees, but again, you can't remember that off the top of your head. And also when you've got a question about it, you kind of go to this document and you're like, I don't know where to look. If I can ask an AI agent, I've got this thing that I need some support with, where would I go in the business? And it can give you answers and it can tell you what the policy is. It's incredible.
Definitely. We have a lot about that with kind of our different positions on things like that. And often employees want to know, like, what are we saying about that? And they want access to the information quite quickly. And so, if it's locked up in someone's inbox, then it's really hard to get some of those responses really quickly. And so, definitely, again, where AI can be really helpful is to quickly scan through documents. I had it run through a 900-page document the other day, and it did it effortlessly, and it kind of provided me with the answer I needed from that report. I just didn't have time to scroll through the entire report to get to it. We're putting so much effort into that now from a search perspective. So with our corporate website and things like that, we're much more kind of conscious of SEO and stuff like that. So search engine optimization, and kind of making sure we're turning up in the right spaces. Because again, when I started working, it was, you Google that. I remember coming into the office and telling people, you can just Google that. And that was like a new thing for them. Whereas now, like even my kids will say, just ask Gemini or just ask ChatGPT. And so the effort that we're putting in right now is to make sure that when Coca-Cola, we turn up in those searches, that it's our content you're seeing and our information that's being used, rather than somebody else who's speaking on our behalf.
And I think the exciting thing, like coming from my core day to day, is in a search agency. And the thing that we're really excited about at the moment is it almost feels like the early days of Google again, because we don't quite know, like everyone's got their ideas around how ChatGPT is indexing information, Gemini, etc. But we don't quite know. It's back. I mean, whereas Google, we've all kind of worked it out now. We know how to do good SEO, but we don't really know. We're all starting to find out strategies, but it's exciting to be a part of that and exciting to see how they're going to develop.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't think that kind of 18 years down the line, I'm still talking about SEO now and it being like a thing that we need to put a lot of effort behind, but it really is. It's kind of gone, I say it's gone full circle in that we were really into websites in the early days because that was all that was there. And so if you didn't have your stuff on the website, no one could find it or see it. But then when social media really took off, everyone kind of put the brakes on to the efforts that they were putting into the website, started focusing on making sure they had good social media strategies. Whereas what AI has now done is it's kind of started to say back to companies, guys, don't forget about your website, because we're about to crawl through your entire website all the time for new bits of information.
But also your social and your PR and your it's getting it from everywhere, isn't it?
Exactly.
Which just means everything needs to be aligned and it's exciting, isn't it?
No, definitely.
It's an incredible space to work in. So I feel like we're close to wrapping up. Ruhaan, any questions that you're desperate for answers to?
Are there like any personal habits that you have that help you stay organized in your work?
Oh my god.
Firstly, how organized are you?
I was
going
to say I can be very disorganized all of the time.
Well, you were here on time. You were early today.
Oh no, you always turn up early for stuff.
Good.
That's always one thing you have to do. How do I stay organized with stuff? I probably more recently I've actually started using OneNote a lot. That's been really helpful. Where previously I'd just kind of look through my inbox and like try to put things into a to-do folder and all that sort of stuff. Didn't help because that to-do folder just ended up being a massive pile of stuff that I haven't quite got to yet. But I'm finding a lot more in that starting the week off with a list of activities that I need to get done for this week and prioritizing in that way has been super helpful because before you kind of just ended up being locked into your inbox and kind of, like I said, wake up in the morning and start with like what's the most important pressing thing. Whereas kind of shifting to being more kind of task orientated for the week, it kind of helps focus you a little bit on kind of what needs to be done by when, and then that week's done, and then you start the next week on a new kind of note. And so I think kind of writing stuff down, I say writing, never writing, to be honest with you, always typing things on my phone in Notepad and things like that. It helps me kind of stay structured.
Love that.
Wow.
Yeah, priorities are always changing as well, though, aren't they? But knowing that you know what you need to get done and not just being guided by that inbox, because you do sometimes you can get lost in your inbox, can't you?
Definitely. I know I've been lost for a good while in that inbox.
Yeah.
So definitely having a bit of structure in terms of focusing week by week has kind of helped shape things. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. A really good question. Is there anything you feel like you haven't told us that you're like, oh, this was the key to everything. I need the audience to hear it?
Again, I think we've talked about it a lot, but it's that those relationships and kind of those face-to-face moments with people and kind of opening up and telling people some of the aspirations that you have. So often people talk about having mentors and things like that. It is super helpful to just have those conversations with people. Also finding people who have taken a similar career path to what you think is the path you want to take. And not kind of restricting yourself to just like, what can I find out online about those people? Literally contact them. Often you'll find that people love to talk about themselves. And so making use of that and using that as leverage is great for you personally, because if you open the door up and say, hey, I would really like to hear about your career and kind of how you progressed throughout your career, people will happily tell you. And often, sometimes the barrier for people is that sending that first email into opening that door. And the reality of, again, my career and what I've done is it's all been about talking to people, obviously putting work in, but talking to people and making sure that when I've done something or I want to achieve something or I want to move to the next step, it's about having conversations with people to understand how they did it, so you can maybe take a little bit of inspiration from that.
Yeah, I love that. Being really intentional, it feels like, and telling people if they don't know, how can they help you achieve it? And also, we had this on another podcast recently. The fact that when you say something out loud or you write it down, you're so much more likely to do it. So actually, by articulating, saying the next job I want or where I want to get to is, suddenly you're like, actually, I'm a bit more accountable for making that happen now.
It's funny because I remember now, I did used to do that when in the early days of working at a company. Like I would literally write down in Notepad on my phone. I probably still got them now. It's been years. But it'd be like, I really want to work on this project next year, or I want to do this thing next year. And you would write it down and maybe not have an entire plan behind it. But again, like you say, it kind of builds an intention in your head that that's kind of where I want to get to next year or the following year. And sometimes that helps frame some of the decisions you take. So where you might not have taken an opportunity because you think, oh, that's not really going to benefit me, because you've got that intention of like, next year I'm going to achieve this. You're like, no, that would be a good one because it will answer that thing that I wrote down the other day. I'd say definitely in the early parts of your career, just for me, it was like, take every opportunity.
Yeah.
And don't sit there and kind of think, no, I'm going to hold out for that big one or that major one that's going to come my way and is going to pay me all the money that I want and all this sort of stuff. again, for me, it was a lot about just kind of picking up small projects here and there, everywhere I could, that kind of showcase my skills. I didn't know what the career was going to be, but I knew what I was capable of doing. And I guess building that confidence in yourself is really important in those early days.
Yeah, just go and make it happen.
Yeah,
I love that. That has been incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, there's so many good bits of advice in there. And, well, I think, Ruhaan, you've probably taken loads away.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you on our next episode of Behind the Future. That concludes another brilliant episode of Behind the Future. Thank you so much for listening. You can listen back to other episodes on YouTube or your podcast platform of choice. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, as that will help us to grow this podcast, ensuring we can get the best guests on here for you to learn from. You can also follow us on socials, linked in the show notes for exclusive content. See you on the next episode.